I haven't played for over a week. It's been going.
Call the Erie County Board of Elections meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bale,
Here.
Mr. Copeland,
Here.
Mr. Drexel,
Here.
Mrs. Showerman. Here. Mr. Scatella,
Yeah.
Mr. Winarski,
Here,
Chairman Horton.
Here. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. We'll move right to the hearing of the public and citizens to be heard.
My name's, it just looks like a face. I can't help but think that it looks like a face. My name's Freda Tepfer and I live in Erie. I'm a judge of elections. I really appreciated all the help from the election department staff. One thing that there needs to be a little better education on, I had a poll watcher who wanted to possibly challenge one of my voters because she was requesting assistance because she had language issues. The person wondered if the person was even a citizen and had a right to vote. And she did not challenge her, but I was a little horrified that person was kind of profiled. One of my poll workers' parents, one of her parents actually had a language assistance. So I think there needs to be a better understanding in the public that yes, you can be an American citizen and a qualified voter and still need language assistance to vote. Sam's here and he might want to say it, but as he said at a prior meeting, there's 17 ways you can screw up a provisional ballot envelope. And I can do it as the judge of elections and I try hard not to, but apparently I might have done one wrong. And the voter, but the same person could be a voter at the polls and not have nearly that many requirements. Now, I believe the provisional ballot envelope is a state mandated thing, but I really urge you folks to be heard at the state level about the need to make provisional ballot voting more reasonable. Hopefully we won't ever have a repeat of what happened this last time with the failure of our contractor. But nevertheless, I've always had provisional ballots and I know I didn't forget to do some of the things I've forgotten in the past, but not all of the receipts that are supposed to stick on the envelope had any sticky on them. So I just wrote the numbers down instead of trying to tape something because it wouldn't stick. But anyway, we really need a more reasonable way for people to vote provisionally. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tucker. Any citizens online desiring to be heard? Any citizens online desiring to be heard? Seeing, hearing none. We'll move right to item 4 on the agenda, the election report from our chief clerk, Ms. Chilcott.
Okay, this is a more comprehensive wrap up for our election cycle for this year. So to wrap up our numbers for the 2024 general election, we had a 75.7% voter turnout. In Erie County, we have a total of 182,978 registered voters. And that breaks down to 81,783 Democratic and 73,036 Republican. And then there were the others. For the general election, there's 99,662 people voted in person, 36,790 voted by mail, and 2,116 provisional ballots were tabulated. And those election results are posted on our website. A recount was initially ordered by the state for the Office of U.S. Senate. Logic and accuracy for that recount took place on Tuesday, November 19th at 9 a.m. And the recount was later canceled. We performed a risk limiting audit, which is a 2% statistical sample analysis. And the race of state treasurer was selected by the Department of State for that statewide audit. Our audit included Erie Ward 2, District 6, and Summit Township District 1, and there were no variances. Erie County does have a curing process in place for the mail ballots. 356 declaration envelopes were initially flagged. We reached out to the voters and 171 of those people came into our office to cure their ballot. The remaining ballots were not counted as follows. 46 had incorrect date, 37 had no date, 11 had no privacy envelope, 16 had no signature, 38 had no signature or date, 36 had wrong signature, and 1 had an empty envelope. Provisional ballots not counted were 84 were not signed by the voter, and 120 were not signed by the poll worker. Leading up to the election, I want to start back in January 2024. Our staff noticed during a power outage here that not all of the equipment in the fishbowl was supported by the county's backup power supply. Once this issue was identified, we discussed it with the operations department, and we were able to have all of the central tabulation equipment placed onto the backup generator system prior to the primary election. In March 2024, the electricity at the warehouse was upgraded to be able to be more efficiently to charge and power approximately 800 voting apparatuses, including the ballot marking devices, scanners, and poll pads. And all of the voting equipment has battery backup, and those units are all charged there at the warehouse. In April, as the county was in the direct path of the total solar eclipse, the Board of Elections worked with the Department of State, the Governor's Office, and the Erie County Board of Common Pleas to extend the last day to register to vote by 1 day to April 9th, 2024. As 2024 was the presidential election, we had a short window to prepare for the primary as it fell on April 23rd. As a point of reference, the 2025 primary election will be on May 20th. In May 2024, we were contacted by the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security, and CISA, which is Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. At the beginning of June, these agencies performed a site assessment at no cost to the county in preparation for the federal election. As a result of that assessment, modifications were made to improve the safety and security of our offices and storage areas. We had a new customer service area installed in the voter registration department with a new security door with badge access for employees only. We had 3 large windows installed in the hallway alongside the fishbowl in the voter registration department. And this change allowed for easy viewing of the pre-canvassing and canvassing of the ballots. We also set up a live stream video for authorized representatives to have the opportunity to observe the activities in room 114A. At the election warehouse, we created a viewing room with 3 large windows and a flat screen TV for a live stream view of the operations during logic and accuracy testing. We also hired private security during testing to allow our staff to perform the testing safely and without being distracted by potential harassing or threatening behavior from the public. Also at the warehouse, new inner and outer doors with upgraded security features were installed, as well as updated smoke and fire detectors. Training in August, 2 staff members attended the summer conference. And the Department of State offered training sessions throughout the year via Microsoft Teams in which we participated. And the Department of State was quickly accessible whenever staff needed additional assistance throughout the year. CISA and Homeland Security offered multiple trainings and sent out alerts and updates to keep our staff informed. Of course, this information was also shared with other departments, such as IT and public safety, as it was needed. Our manufacturers, such as No Ink and Dominion, also provided training for any hardware or software updates as they were completed on site and in person. Approximately 1,000 poll workers and technicians worked at the polls and in the field again this year, which is more than in the past, including about 53 students this year. Our staff provided training at the Bayfront Convention Center in this room, in room 114A, and provided online classes as an additional option for our student workers. We also reached out to the county's Veteran Affairs Department and brought on board a new per diem from that outreach who will be moving into more of a leadership role in the next election. Staff from the voter registration department spoke at the Jefferson Educational Societies of high schools and also coordinated with the Erie County Prison. Speaking of outreach, the Erie County Board of Elections received a lot of media attention this year. And we were able to use this as a vehicle to educate the public on how to navigate some of the issues that arose during this election. A brief history as to why Erie County is such an important bellwether county. Of the 3,143 counties in the United States, only 206 counties went Obama to Trump, and only 25 went Obama, Trump, and then back to Biden. Since 1992, Erie County has voted the same way as the state. With Pennsylvania having the most electoral votes of the swing states, 19, Erie County is very closely watched during the presidential elections. And I'm sure we still have our record, so we'll have a return of all this media attention again in 4 years. I'm sure that you already know all those details because you saw the major networks here for the month leading up to the election and not just the national networks. We saw Japan, France, Reuters, BBC, Belgium, Germany, Australia, literally news outlets from all over the world. I've now been on Tokyo TV and my voice dubbed with in Japanese and have Japanese subtitles on the screen. I also utilized the sound room and podcast kit at the Blasco Library for an interview on NPR's On Point talk show with Meghna Chakrabarty. We prepared all year for the election, made security improvements, developed safety plans, hired and trained additional staff, ran scenarios for things that could come up during the election, attended trainings. And what I've been told is that no matter how well prepared you are, something will always come up during an election. There will always be a curveball. But what no one could even contemplate was that the mail vendor would fail to send out mail ballots until days or even weeks after expected. And some had been sent to the wrong voters, something so unfathomable, something so unimaginable, but it did happen. And we reached out to the Department of State and I began having daily online meetings with the department and dozens of people from the United States Post Office, trying to determine where the ballots went and create a tracking system for them. When we invited the Department of State to come to Erie County, and they came and assisted with gathering data for us, such as bulk mail, email addresses, specific data searches, which precincts had the most mail-in ballot applications, so we could prepare by sending them the additional boxes of provisional ballot supplies. Pima brought in computers, printers, and additional provisional ballot materials. On October 30th, the Democratic Party sued the Erie County Board of Elections because voters were still not receiving their mail ballots. The Republican Party became enjoined in a lawsuit. While this may sound alarming to hear that the Board of Elections was sued during a federal election, by both parties, it was a strategy that brought everyone together to find a fair outcome and solution for the problem created by the mail vendor. Both parties had to be involved because it wouldn't be proper for one party to receive a remedy acceptable to that party, but not to another party, especially during an election. The testimony was given for hours, and lots of brainstorming was going on in the courtroom and in chambers. And ultimately, what was ordered by the court and agreed on by the parties was exactly what the Board of Elections was already doing. The parties did not sue the Board of Elections for money, and each party was ordered to pay their own legal expenses. So many options were considered: satellite offices, mobile offices from a van, setting up at another location. We had questions about secure, reliable internet service at those locations. Would there be enough ballots for each of the 149 precincts available at those locations? If we ran out, could we print ballots on demand? Would we have enough qualified and experienced staff to maintain the office at the courthouse and in the field? All of these things were being considered, and it was agreed that the best way to move forward was to reinforce the current office with additional computers and printers and extend the hours during the week and through weekend. We sent emails, set up a FedEx account, sent hundreds of ballots, express or overnight mail, set up a dedicated phone line for disabled voters, set up a dedicated email address for out-of-state voters. And the staff who had already been working 12-hour or more days were working 7 days a week. They kept on working, and everyone kept saying how pleasant they were and how helpful they were. They hadn't honestly been seeing their families for weeks now, but they were still coming and doing 100% every single day at this office. Tanya led the team and maintained a positive work culture for her staff, which was not an easy task given the demands throughout the presidential election. This was all a hands-on deck mission, even before we had a vendor issue. The entire staff for County Council works around the clock almost exclusively for the election department this time of year as well. And we had 20 per diems in the voter registration office, bromers, technicians at the warehouse, pre-canvassers, poll workers, constables, you name it. Earlier in the year, we had already contracted with our manufacturers, Dominion and Knowing, to be here on site in a cubicle in the elections office in case we needed any maintenance or technical support throughout the day. We have always relied on one person from the IT department to be here in a cubicle in our office that day as well. And instead, without notice, no IT staff was permitted to stay in our office. And any IT needs had to be communicated through an email thread involving 17 people and had to be approved by the county executive. The number of tasks had to be ignored due to the inefficiency and inability to formulate the requests in a manner acceptable to the executive. Even after election day, when we were conducting logic and accuracy testing, my request through the Trackit system was denied, and I had to ask for an Ethernet cable through the email thread. Going forward, we need a solution for our website, and we have options. I do have proposals. We need IC support in our office and at our service, as we always have had in the past and was discussed even the day before the election. These new barriers are unacceptable, especially within our own county where we should have the most support. As I said, this election was mission driven, all hands on deck to get the ballots to the people, to be able to have an interface on the website to communicate with the public, to be able to email a large number of voters at once. We had the support of the Department of State, PEMA, our manufacturers, employees from other departments offering to work for us during the election. Surely you can see that from the beginning of the year, working with all the other county departments seamlessly, working with the agents from the FBI and Homeland Security, working with the Department of State, USPS, FedEx. I had the personal cell phone numbers of these people from Washington, DC, Virginia. FedEx held the plane 2 hours so we could have the opportunity to get as many overnight ballots out as possible on the Saturday before the election. And everyone, literally everyone wanted to see this come together. We really came from behind. It was a huge challenge, and we met that challenge. This was a well-run election. And I'd like to read some of the comments made by the attorneys as we were going through the lawsuit and on the day of the election. Karen, I know you're faced with an overwhelming task and appreciate your office's effort and professionalism. Thank you. Karen, it was great meeting you and working with you on election day. My cap's off to you and your team. It was a tough job, but you did it with grace. Karen and Tanya, thank you both for your transparency, courteousness, and professionalism throughout the recount process. You and your staff are superb civil servants who help inspire faith in our democracy. Please send my best to everyone inside the fishbowl. Karen and Tanya, amazing work under pressure. Karen, you guys are doing an amazing job. Keep it up. Thank you again for the amazing work you and Tanya are doing. I am proud to live in a county where the fundamental right of voting is taken seriously, and the staff goes to such extraordinary lengths to assure a fair and open election. Karen, I wasn't afforded the pleasure of personally congratulating you, and thank you for your professionalism during this trying time. You and your staff did a commendable job, and the taxpayers of Erie County should all be proud of your work. I believe the county council made an exceptional decision in hiring you for your present position. I look forward to working alongside you and Tanya in the future. Karen, it was a pleasure working with you and your team. You were all very efficient and squared away. You were solid in your approach to issues and very polished with your interviews. From my perspective, this entire operation was accomplished very well. And a couple from reporters here. Karen, thank you for taking the time to speak with me on election day. The way you spoke and organized the election was impressive. Thank you for sharing a glimpse of it with our readers. Dear Ms. Chilcott, we wanted to thank you and your team for facilitating such great access and taking the time to explain the processes to us. Congratulations on what seemed to be a very efficient night. A special shout out to the Sheriff's Department, Deputy Aman in particular, who was a great source of humor and guidance through the evening. Other departments. I really cannot say enough, and I know I've said it again. Our elections department has been fantastic. There are no words to really express the gratitude and the appreciation, the hard work from all the staff. And Tanya leading that department has done just a fantastic job this year with the election from January start to finish. And I appreciate the support of the board the whole year. Whenever we need something, you guys have been there. If we need equipment, you're helping us with equipment. If we need, some advice and encouragement, you're there the whole year. We're just very glad to have you here as a board of elections.
Comments, I'd like to, before you do it, I'd like to just just because I know the magnitude of the work. And Ms. Chilcott did a fantastic job representing the office, but I always want to acknowledge Ms. Fernandez and to give her an opportunity for the conferences.
I would just like to say that this was a very challenging election. That the number of hours that we put in, the effort that we put in, a lot of our staff went without taking breaks throughout the day. And not because they were asked to, just because the demand, we had people, voters, waiting 5 hours to make it to the counter. And I'm just really proud of everyone. So, we did it.
I'll open it up to the board.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I haven't actually had a chance to say thank you to both of you. I think you did a fantastic job and I'm proud to have got to work with you side by side and get to. I'm not super happy we got to go through that process, but I mean, I think we handled that in the best way possible. And as Andre often puts it, like, I think we maintained our gold standard for how we handle elections in Erie County and, yeah, like you said, they'll be writing books about this one, right?
Yeah,
Mr. Chair,
yes, sir.
I too want to thank the election office. Maybe you guys should start running classes on how a department's supposed to run. And maybe Erie County would be better off. Thank you. And I hope you pass that on to the staff.
Yeah. yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chair. Yes, thank you to both of you, and I think that the true measure is that you hear it from both sides. And that, I think, is the most important thing. Everyone that I've talked to, regardless of affiliation, couldn't be happier with the job that you did and couldn't be more proud to be associated with it, and we're happy with everything, so I think that's the key.
I'll just reiterate pretty much everything everybody else said. And even last meeting, I told her how proud I was of you guys and how you conducted yourselves. Good job.
Hopefully you good. Well, I'm just still processing everything, to be honest. Everything that happened and occurred during the election. It's been the budget going, it was an intense time for our entire team. But you know, you guys never wavered, and I'm gonna echo Councilman Bale's comments. Because you guys kept your shoulders to the wheel, your head down, and kept the work. The most important thing. But to his comment, the measure of and what our standard always has been, always will be, must continue to be, is we have to instill confidence in the voting process in Erie County. And I wish I could take Erie County and put it somewhere, just use it as a template for fair elections. Cause it wasn't a small thing. And you had heavy hitters in here from the national level in that courtroom. So I sat up there. And to have them come back, some of them I've heard on talk shows before. They weren't talking as flatter me as they were about our office. And the thing is, when you know it to be the truth firsthand, sitting there, see the 5,000, I know you guys, 5,000 people came to that counter in like 3 days. Unprecedented. And you did, I'm not, we'll always try to support you. Saying that, and there's always the Paul Harvey side of the story. Because we're all family in here, so I could say, you didn't see the people who were away from their family, they were working. And those are the only time they took a break is when they went out to break down. And to cry and to hug each other. And so I saw that part of it as well. So thank you. Thank you so much. Which is a good segue, I think, into item 5. it's still Cotton Eye, the election office, we talked about it, I've talked about it with several of you. I don't think we have a choice in the matter, it's just to seek another vendor. We don't even know if this vendor will be in existence in February, much less up to the task, and why would we want to? So we asked to do some homework, they've done that. Asked to present your findings. You would at this time.
Well, we went over the specs that we're looking for, especially in light of what happened this year, to make sure that those, you know, in our scoring, that those things are considered. And so we've updated the specs. Guess that's all been prepared. I have a copy of the RFP that was prepared by Erica Coe in procurement department. So that's approved to move forward. Once voted on, it's ready to be published and put into the media, the website. I'm not sure what all I'm supposed to share regarding that, because it's a, you know.
I don't think, I think that there's something that you could probably put in like a white paper perspective as, because it's contractual, especially considering in light of this past election. But it's something that all of the members of the board should be privy to and have an opportunity to chime in on. And although I know we received your report electronically, I don't know how others feel, but I'm older guy, so if you could make a hard copy and stick it in my box, that'd be great. I think we should probably entertain a motion, because at this point in the game, we don't really have the luxury of coming back with a lot of them to come back and parcel this out a lot. Their petitions go out February 18th. So this stuff
Yeah.
typically takes like 6 months minimum.
Yeah, we won't be back.
Probably
in
if I'm
time.
speaking out of
Yeah.
sorts.
Hopefully,
right, those dates?
we have, the way that she prepared,
Yeah.
the RFP, it would be posted on the website and in the paper, pretty immediately, and then I think the bid date, if she were to publish tomorrow, which now we're past that, moment, but I think she had it set to close on, January 8th, we opened the first or second week in January.
So let's do this, in light of time. Yes, sir.
Two questions. One, it sounds like what we're looking for is a motion to start the RFP to take bids. And then, I suppose the second is, you know, I know we contracted with a vendor in Michigan, I believe, to deal with, because of Dominion requirements. How are we getting? We're soliciting bids, like directly to them, or we're advertising? Because it would think that with there being Dominion vendors all over the country, that we would have to seek them out, yes? Is that,
It would be public information. We can send it to potential people. We're already being contacted. Everybody knows we had an issue. So,
okay,
we're already being contacted by vendors. And the use of Spectrum printing was it was a one-time purchase for those paper ballots. And it was not a mail house. So I don't know what services that company provides, but we're not under any kind of contract or obligation with them. It was just to purchase ballots that they printed and delivered the next day to us.
So
well, and would this board then be given an opportunity to review the qualifications of potential awardees? Just because I think that this time with this vendor, we weren't aware that they were having issues. But I think, given that what we saw in Mahoning County, that they were having issues, and I guess, like, as long as they have an opportunity to review, make sure that they're not having any kind of issues.
okay, again. And you're right, I want to be asking for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Let me just, again. I'm asking you because of the shortness of the time. To do the two things, to do the motion. But to allow them the opportunity to do the work. And I think my statement was, to ensure that this entirety of it all, got a chance to chime in. So I'll entertain that motion.
Made the motion. Second.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded. To consider, is to, put out the bid. Search of a new vendor. Is there any further discussion? Call for the question.
Mr. Drexel,
Yes.
Mrs. Showerman,
Yes.
Mr. Scatella,
Yes,
Mr. Winooski,
Yes.
Mr. Bale,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
Mr. Horton.
Yes. Is there any other stuff from our chief clerk or from the elections office at this point? Okay, well, is there any other thing that you want to talk about, or I'll open it up for comments, closing comments? Here and seeing none, I call, entertain a motion for adjournment. It's been adjourned. We'll get a couple minutes on topics.
Yeah, I was.
Did you hear me? Did you have the total number of independent?
We got the recorder.